Dreams. The relationship between my mother, sister, and me had been cold and inimical for as long as I could remember. To me, my mother was irrational, hurling hurtful invectives for the slightest infraction. "Don't matter," my mother grumbled when I asked her where she moved my watercolor paints. "It isn't like you got talent." The time our mailbox got knocked off, she somehow got it in her head that I was the culprit. "Never respected nothing," I heard her say. And my sister took my mother's side against me every time. 5 years my senior, Tammy seemed not to have a brain in her head. She dithered about everything, incapable of making any firm decision. No matter how often my mother deprecated her. Dumb, ugly, fat. Tammy made futile attempts to fawn her way back into mother's good graces. My father would pontificate, "You three are more alike than you know." In April of 2000, my mother kicked us both out of the house. Dad had been exiled many years before. After that, my sister and I went our separate ways. It was then that I began having recurring dreams. In one, I am running to catch up with a woman. Each time I get near, I trip and fall. Another woman, smiling and shouting my name, comes with great alacrity and offers her hand. But when I reach to grab it, she disappears. In another, a female professor hands me a test. Although I have spent hours studying for it, I know none of the answers. The professor derides me for my poor performance. I watch while she relays my ignorance to the class with comic hilarity. These dreams were not hard to understand. In fact, it was just the opposite. They were pellucid, and absent any knowledge of dream interpretation, I was still able to devise their significance. I knew that they both reflected the pugnacious relationship I shared with my mother and sister. However, there was one dream I could never quite construe. I bit into an apple. All my teeth fell out. I had this dream far more than any of the others. Years later, to heal our fractious relationship, Mom, Tammy, and I elected to go to counseling together. After several sessions, I told my dream about teeth tumbling out of my head. "My God, Crystal," said my mother, "I've had the exact same dream many times." "Me too," said Tammy solemnly. Breakthrough? No idea, but I was reminded of the words of my now dead father. Maybe the three of us are more alike than we know. The story of a day with pigs. There was once a boy who would never get dressed when his parents told him to, nor would he put on what they wanted him to after his bath. He preferred to dress in a much stranger manner, but above all, he liked to take his time. His parents were always in a rush and wanted him to be a lot quicker, but the boy didn't like this, and he would slow down even more. One day his parents were in their usual hurry, and they got so angry when he refused to dress that they told him that he would have to go out naked. The boy didn't mind this in the least, so out they went. While the boy was standing naked outside his house, waiting for his parents to bring the car, along came the local pig farmer. The pig farmer was hard of hearing and had poor eyesight. Not only that, but he'd also forgotten to put his glasses on that day. When he saw the little boy's pink skin, he thought it was one of his pigs, and with a bit of shouting, prodding, and pushing, the farmer managed to get the boy safely back to a pigsty. The boy protested the whole way there, but as the farmer was almost deaf, his complaints didn't help him. And there he was for the whole day, living amongst the pigs, thought to be a pig, and sharing their food and home. Finally, though, his parents found him. The boy had had such a regrettable day that never again did he want to be mistaken for anything other than a human being. Nowadays, he's the first to get dressed and look perfectly neat and tidy, just like those children in the clothes catalogs. In the heart of China's Hunan province, nestled between lush green hills and the winding course of the Xiang River, lay the village of Longxi. It was a place where tradition and nature wove seamlessly into the fabric of daily life. In this village lived a man named Li Wei, a farmer known for his quiet wisdom and deep connection to the land. Li Wei had spent his entire life working the same fields that his ancestors had tilled for generations. The village had changed little over the years, and so had the way of life. Every morning, Li Wei would rise before the sun, don his worn straw hat, and head out to his fields, where he tended to crops of rice, sweet potatoes, and a variety of vegetables. Despite his simple life, Li Wei was far from ordinary. He had a profound understanding of the cycles of nature and a unique ability to predict the weather by observing subtle signs in the environment. The villagers often sought his advice on when to plant and harvest, and his predictions were seldom wrong. One autumn, as the harvest season approached, a severe drought struck the region. The river levels dropped, and the once fertile fields began to wither. The villagers were worried. Their crops were failing, and their livelihoods were at stake. They gathered in the village square to discuss their plight, and Li Wei was among them, listening intently. After a long silence, Li Wei spoke. "We must not lose hope," he said. "The land is tired, but it is not defeated. There is still a way to save our harvest." Li Wei proposed an ancient technique known to few, the construction of a series of small irrigation channels to redirect water from a distant spring. It was a laborious task, requiring teamwork and perseverance, but Li Wei's confidence inspired the villagers. The community rallied together, working side by side to dig and build the channels. Under Li Wei's guidance, they created a network that gradually brought water back to the parched fields. The process was slow, but as the water flowed through the channels, the crops began to revive. Weeks later, the village held a small celebration in gratitude for their restored fields. The harvest, though not as bountiful as in previous years, was enough to see them through the winter. The villagers honored Li Wei, not just for his wisdom, but for his ability to bring them together in their time of need. Li Wei, however, was modest. "It was the strength of our community that saved us," he said. "I merely pointed the way." As the years went by, Li Wei continued his life as a farmer, but his story spread beyond Longxi. He became a symbol of resilience and unity, showing that even in the face of adversity, hope and cooperation could overcome the greatest challenges. And so, in a small village by the Xiang River, amidst the rolling hills and fields, the legacy of Li Wei lived on, a testament to the enduring spirit of a man who understood that the true harvest was the strength of his people. The story of a secret talent. Eve is excited to go to her first Dylan Wyman concert in New York. Dylan Wyman is Eve's favorite singer. In fact, Eve tells her mother, Janine, Dylan Wyman is her favorite person. When they are about halfway to New York, Janine hears a weird noise. "Oh no," she says, realizing that they have a flat tire. There isn't much room on the side of the road, but Janine pulls the car over and climbs out. Sure enough, their right rear tire is completely flat. Janine opens the trunk to get the jack and the spare tire. Traffic continues to whiz by at 70 miles per hour. "Mom, are we going to die?" Eve asks. She is really scared. "Don't worry, honey. I'll be quick," Janine says as she starts to jack up the car. "Wow, Mom. How do you know how to do this?" Eve is shocked at her mother's secret talent. Then Janine takes off the flat tire. "Wow, Mom. How do you know how to do that?" Eve asks in wonder. Janine just laughs. Then she puts the spare tire on. Eve says, "Mom, who are you?" The entire tire change takes only 10 minutes. They both climb back into the car and Janine says, "I'm so sorry, honey, but we can't drive all the way to Albany on this spare tire. We're going to have to stop and buy a new tire. We might be late for your concert." "That's okay, Mom," Eve says. "You're my favorite person now." In the vibrant town of Siem Reap, Cambodia, there lived a man named Dara. Dara was a hard-working farmer known throughout his village for his skill in tending rice paddies and his warm, friendly demeanor. But despite his deep connection to his land and his community, Dara had always harbored a dream that stretched beyond the verdant fields of his village. He wanted to learn English. His dream began when a group of foreign tourists visited Siem Reap and took an interest in his farm. Dara was fascinated by their ability to communicate effortlessly in a language he barely understood. Their stories of distant places and experiences ignited a spark in him. Dara wanted to be able to share his own story and connect with people from around the world, just like those tourists had done with him. The problem was that Dara had very little formal education and no access to English classes. His days were filled with tending to his farm, and the nights were spent helping his family with their needs. But Dara's determination was unwavering. He found a worn-out English textbook left by a previous visitor and began teaching himself, practicing with phrases like, "Hello," "How are you?" and "Thank you." He spent his free time studying the book and listening to English language radio programs that he could barely understand. Dara also began jotting down new words and phrases, painstakingly translating them using an old dictionary. Despite the difficulties, he made progress, his vocabulary slowly expanding with each passing week. One day, a local NGO announced that they were offering free English classes in Siem Reap. Dara was overjoyed, but also nervous. He had never been in a formal classroom setting before, and worried that he might not keep up with the other students. Nonetheless, he decided to take the leap and enrolled in the class. The first few weeks were challenging. Dara struggled with pronunciation and understanding the teacher's fast-paced speech, but his classmates, many of whom were younger and had more education, were kind and supportive. They often helped him practice outside of class, correcting his mistakes with patience and encouragement. As the months went by, Dara's English improved significantly. He learned to speak more fluently and began understanding conversations and instructions better. He started using English to interact with the tourists who visited his farm, and their positive responses filled him with pride and joy. One particularly memorable day, Dara met a group of English-speaking tourists who were interested in learning about traditional Cambodian farming techniques. With his newfound English skills, Dara was able to explain his methods and share stories about his life and culture. The tourists were captivated and took many photos, which they later shared on social media, bringing international attention to Dara's farm. This exposure helped Dara's farm become a popular destination for tourists, and he started earning extra income, which he reinvested into his farm. His success allowed him to continue his English studies, and he even began teaching basic English to other villagers who were interested in learning. Dara's journey from a humble farmer with a dream to an inspiring example of perseverance and self-improvement was a testament to the power of education and determination. His ability to bridge cultures through language opened doors he had once only dreamed of, proving that with dedication and a little help from others, even the biggest dreams can become reality. The story of bad blood. David and Emma looked at each other across the table. The young couple were happy. The food was delicious. The light from the candles was soft, and the music was perfect. David looked at Emma's beautiful smile. All the pain of his last breakup disappeared. All his doubts and fears about love had gone. His hand reached out and touched hers. "I want to ask you something." David searched her eyes. Could she guess what was coming? Her smile made him feel brave. She held his hand. "Don't worry. Whatever it is, I'll probably say yes." He felt so excited. He was about to ask the most important question of his life. From the corner of the restaurant, a strange man watched them. He sat very still at his table. He held a menu, but he wasn't reading it. Instead, his cold eyes looked only at the young couple. Back at their table, David suddenly felt nervous. "Excuse me," he said to Emma. He pushed his chair back and went to the toilet. As he looked in the mirror, he told himself, "Come on, David, come on! You can do this, mate. She's crazy about you." Feeling ready, he went out of the bathroom. He almost walked into the extremely tall man who was waiting by the door. The man's eyes were a cold, bright blue. His face was pale with a sharp, pointed nose and thin, pale lips. "Oh, sorry," said David. "Which one?" the man hissed. He spoke with a strong and strange accent. David had never heard that accent before. For a moment, David was confused. Then he realized what the other man meant. "Oh, this one," said David helpfully. "This is the men's toilet." David went back into the restaurant. He reached for the ring in a box in his pocket. It was time to ask her. The taxi ride home was wonderful. The happy couple discussed their future life together. They shared their sweet feelings about each other. "The night I asked you to marry me," said David. "The night I said yes," replied Emma. "Just think, our whole lives together. Sharing, caring," he began. "Loving, giving." Emma finished his sentence. They smiled at each other in loving excitement. "You are so wonderful," said David. "And you're absolutely beautiful," said Emma. "I've never met anyone so lovely and kind. I'm so happy I could sing." They entered their block of flats holding hands. A tall man watched them from the shadows. Which one? He asked himself. He watched the building. He was waiting for a light to come on to show him which flat was theirs. 1 minute passed. 2. There it was. The light went on in a third-floor window. He saw Emma for a moment as she closed the curtains. How many times had he stood on a corner like this? How many victims had he watched? Many corners, many victims. His pale lips formed a thin smile. He moved out of the shadows to the door and pressed the buttons for every flat. The vampire was always pleased when people lived in flats. Sooner or later, someone always let you in. Silly humans. They thought you were someone's pizza delivery. It was a kind of invitation, and that was all he needed to enter a home. He climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor and walked down the hall. He didn't make a sound. He could hear the young couple laughing and talking. He put his ear against the door. He could hear what they were saying, and he was happy. Young love made the sweetest blood. It was so full of life and energy. "I feel as if I'm in a film," she was saying. "More like a dream," he replied. "Yes, a dream. How lucky we are. Guess who I'll be dreaming about tonight," he said. Who? "Her hair smells of roses. She's like an angel." Their dream was about to become a nightmare, the listening vampire thought. Suddenly, he opened the door and stood there, showing his sharp teeth. The couple screamed and then held each other in terrified silence. The vampire could smell and taste their fear. This was how he liked it. Fear also made the blood sweeter. "There's my wallet, on the table there. Take it," said David. "Take anything you want." "I will take anything I want," the vampire replied. Fine. We won't stop you, I promise," David cried. "You won't stop me, I promise," replied the vampire. The light shone on the sharp teeth. A terrible thought came to David and Emma at the same time. "Look at his teeth, is he a vampire?" "Which one?" the vampire hissed. "It can be only one." The couple's eyes were big and afraid, their mouths open in horror. They held each other's hands and their stomachs filled with fear. "Already tonight," continued the vampire, "I have drunk from 3. 1 more. Then I can sleep and feel young again." The vampire moved towards them. Instinct made David step in front of Emma to protect her. Emma gratefully held onto his back. The vampire wasn't in a hurry. He had plenty of time. Who should he attack? He asked himself. Which one? "Thank you," Emma said quietly in David's ear, "for what you're doing for me." "Of course, my love. I'm here to protect you." He felt proud as he said the words. He could fight this vampire. All he needed was a piece of wood or something to push through the heart. He looked around for something. "You're so brave to offer yourself," continued Emma. "Sorry?" asked David. "What are you talking about?" "Oh," said Emma. "I just thought that with your love for me and everything." David and the vampire looked at each other. "Now listen, Emma. There is no doubt about my love for you." "Really?" she replied. She didn't believe him. "But you can't expect me to just give him my life." "I wasn't saying you should," she said. "It's just one of our options, that's all." "Well, think of another one," he shouted. "Why don't you offer yourself to him to save me?" The atmosphere in the room had certainly turned ugly. The vampire was not pleased that the fear and love were now silly, selfish arguments. Emma was very angry. "I hope you're joking. Let's see how strong your love is. What a horrible man. What about the woman I was planning to marry, offering me to a vampire like a bone to a dog?" "You said my hair smells of roses," she cried. All right, relax." David was a little embarrassed to be having this argument in front of a stranger. "I'm an angel, you said," she carried on shouting. "Must drink," shouted the vampire angrily as he came even closer. He wanted to make a quick kill. Then he could get away from these terrible people as soon as possible. His eyes opened wider and his teeth were bared. "Which one?" "Her!" David pointed at his future wife. "Him! Him!" screamed Emma in anger. "Please, him!" The vampire approached David. "She's younger, sweeter," said David. The vampire turned to Emma. "He's bigger! There's more of him!" She pointed at David. Suddenly the vampire felt tired. He had been killing for many centuries. Listening to them was depressing. How could he feel good by drinking the blood of either of these disgusting creatures? He looked down at their terrified faces and shouted, "Bad blood!" And with that, he disappeared into the night air and left Emma and David alone together. Together, as they had promised, for the rest of their lives. My little world has broken. Once upon a time, there was a spring who lived happily and safely inside a pen. Although he heard many noises coming from outside, he lived believing that outside his world, inside the pen, there was nothing good. Even just to think about leaving his pen made him so scared that he was quite content to spend his life compacting and stretching himself again and again inside that tiny space. However, one day, the ink ran out, and when the pen's owner was busy changing it, there was an accident. The spring was flung through the air and landed in the toilet drain, well out of sight. Terrified and cursing his bad luck, the spring was flushed through pipe after pipe, each time thinking it might be his end. During the journey, he did not dare open his eyes out of pure fear, nor did he ever stop crying. Swept away by the water, he traveled on and on and on until he ended up in a river. When the river current lost its force and the spring could see that things had calmed down a bit, he stopped crying and listened all around him. Hearing bird song and wind in the trees, he felt encouraged to finally open his eyes. What the spring saw was the pure crystal waters of the river, the rich green rocks of the riverbed, and all kinds of fish of many colors, whose skins seemed to dance under the sunlight. Now he understood that the world was much greater than the space inside the pen, and that there had always been many things outside, waiting to be enjoyed. After spending a while playing with the fish, he went over to the riverbank, and then moved on to a field of flowers. There he heard weeping, He followed the sound, which took him to a lovely flower that had been flattened by a rabbit and could no longer stand up straight. The spring realized that he could help the flower, so he offered to be his support. The flower accepted and slipped through the middle of the spring. There they lived happily together, and they would always laugh when remembering how the spring used to think that all there was to life was being a sad and fearful spring. Once upon a time, there was a little boy who became very ill. He had to spend all day in bed, unable to move. Because other children weren't allowed to come near him, he suffered greatly and spent his days feeling sad and blue. There wasn't much he could do except look out of the window. Time passed, and his feeling of despair just grew. Until one day he saw a strange shape in the window. It was a penguin eating a sausage sandwich. The penguin squeezed in through the open window, said good afternoon to the boy, turned around and left again. Of course, the boy was very surprised. He was still trying to work out what had happened, when outside his window he saw a monkey in a nappy, busy blowing up a balloon. At first the boy asked himself what that could possibly be, but after a while, as more and more crazy-looking characters appeared out the window, he burst out laughing and found it hard to stop. Anyone wanting to stop laughing would never be helped by seeing a pig playing a tambourine, an elephant jumping on a trampoline, or a dog wearing a pair of glasses and talking about nothing except politics. The little boy didn't tell anyone about this because who would have believed him? Even so, those strange characters ended up putting joy back, in his heart and in his body. Before long, his health had improved so much that he was able to go back to school again. There he got to talk to his friends and tell them all the strange things he had seen. While he was talking to his best friend, he saw something sticking out of his friend's school bag. The boy asked his friend what it was, and he was so insistent that finally his friend had to show him what was in the bag. There, inside, were all the fancy dress suits and disguises that his best friend had been using to try to cheer the little boy up. And from that day on, the little boy always did his best to make sure that no one felt sad and alone. The story of the warm whale Gale. The whale lived in a small, salty lake. She was the only whale in that territory, and she led a very comfortable life. In fact, this easy life made her a bit fussy. But one year there was such an incredibly hot summer that the lake's water really warmed up. Gale, used to such an ideal existence, could hardly stand the hot water. A little fish, which had spent some time in a child's goldfish bowl, told Gale that humans used fans to cool themselves down in summer. From then on, Gale the whale couldn't think of anything else apart from how to build her very own fan. Everyone told her that she was overreacting, and that the hot weather would soon pass. But Gale got to work, constructing her enormous fan. When it was finally finished, she started fanning away at herself. Unlucky for the fish. The giant fan beat the little lake's water so strongly that huge waves rolled right across it. The waves crashed onto the lake shore, leaving the lake half empty, and Gale stranded in only a few inches of water. "You couldn't just hang on for a while. You had to empty the lake," some unhappy-looking fish berated her. "So impatient! So selfish," others shouted. But the worst of it for Gale was not the insults, but the fact that with so little water around her, the heat was becoming unbearable. Preparing herself to die of heat stroke, she said her goodbyes to all her friends, and they asked for her forgiveness. She assured them all that if she were to live again, she would be stronger and learn to put up with life's discomforts. Yet once again, Gale the whale was overreacting. She managed to survive those hot days without dying, although, of course, she suffered. When the next rains arrived, the lake filled up again, and the weather improved. Naturally, Gale had to keep her promise, and show everyone that she had learned not to be so dependent on comfort, so impatient, and so fussy. Communication. Communication is like a key that unlocks doors between people. It's how we share stories, dreams, and thoughts. Good, make sure. Communication, we understand each other well. We talk, we listen, and we pay attention to each other's words. When we communicate clearly, it helps us work better together and solve problems. Imagine it as a road that connects us, making teamwork easier. Clear communication stops confusion and helps us know exactly what's happening. Whether we're talking or just nodding, communication is the glue that holds relationships together, making life smoother for everyone. Library. The library is a cozy haven lined with shelves of stories. It's a tranquil retreat where wisdom whispers from the pages. Students huddle over desks, delving into the depths of knowledge. Each book holds a key to unlock the mysteries of the world. The librarian, a guide through this literary maze, offers a helping hand to seekers of information. In this sanctuary of learning, silence reigns supreme, broken only by the rustle of turning pages. Here, time slows down, allowing minds to wander through the realms of imagination and discovery. Vegetables. Vegetables are essential for our health. They provide vital nutrients like vitamins and minerals. Eating vegetables can help us stay strong and healthy. There are many types of vegetables, such as carrots, broccoli, and spinach. Each vegetable has its own unique benefits. Some vegetables are good for our eyesight, while others boost our immune system. It's important to eat a variety of vegetables to get all the nutrients our bodies need. We can cook vegetables in different ways, like boiling, steaming, or roasting. Including vegetables in our diet every day is a smart choice for our well-being. Good habits. Good habits are essential for success. Waking up early ensures a productive day. Planning ahead aids in managing time efficiently. Regular exercise keeps the body healthy and the mind sharp. Reading daily enhances knowledge and vocabulary. Eating nutritious meals fuels energy levels. Maintaining cleanliness fosters a hygienic environment. Setting goals provides direction and motivation. Being kind and respectful builds strong relationships. Avoiding procrastination prevents stress and last-minute rushes. Reflecting on experiences promotes self-improvement. Cultivating good habits leads to a fulfilling and balanced life. Importance of English is incredibly important in our world today. It's like a key that unlocks many doors. When you speak English well, you can talk with people from all over the world. This helps you learn things and find better opportunities. In school, good English skills help you understand your lessons and do well in exams. Plus, lots of books, movies, and websites are in English, so knowing it gives you access to a lot of cool stuff. Whether you want to travel, study, or work, English can make it easier and more fun. So, learning English is definitely worth it. 6:30 a.m. The Awakening. Mia's alarm clock buzzes softly and she stirs awake, feeling the warmth of the sun filtering through her curtains. She stretches her arms and legs, enjoying the comfort of her bed for a few more moments. With a deep breath, she gets up, smiling as she remembers her plans for the day. 7:00 a.m. Morning ritual. In the bathroom, Mia splashes her face with cool water, refreshing her senses. She follows up with her skincare routine: cleanser, toner, moisturizer, and a bit of sunscreen. Her reflection in the mirror is met with a wink and a quick brush of her hair. The morning routine feels almost meditative, a small act of self-love before the day begins. 7:30 a.m. Breakfast bliss. Mia heads to the kitchen, where she whips up a breakfast of avocado toast topped with a sprinkle of chili flakes and a side of fresh fruit. As she enjoys her meal, she catches up on the latest news headlines on her tablet and makes a mental note of her to-do list for the day. 8:02 a.m. Planning and prep. With breakfast done, Mia sits at her desk, reviewing her schedule for the day. She checks her emails and makes a list of tasks to tackle. She's got a busy day ahead, with work and a study group meeting in the evening. 8:30 a.m. Work begins. Mia logs onto her computer, starting her workday. She's a graphic designer, and today's tasks include creating mock-ups for a new client project. Her workspace is organized, and she plays some instrumental music to help her focus. The hours fly by as she immerses herself in her creative process. 12:00 p.m. Lunchtime. As noon approaches, Mia heads to her favorite cafe nearby. She orders a hearty quinoa salad and a herbal tea. She takes her time eating, savoring each bite, and enjoying a brief escape from her screen. She catches up with a friend over text while she eats, sharing a few laughs and updates. 1:00 p.m. Back to work. Returning to her desk, Mia dives back into her work. She tackles a few more design tasks and prepares for a team meeting later in the afternoon. The post-lunch slump is a bit real, but a quick stretch and a glass of water help her stay energized. 3:00 p.m. Afternoon. Recharge. Mia takes a short break to grab a snack, some almonds, and a piece of dark chocolate. She steps outside for a brief walk around the block, enjoying the fresh air and the change of scenery. It's a little moment to recharge before her next meeting. 5:00 p.m. Wrapping up. The end of the workday approaches, and Mia finalizes her tasks. She updates her project management tool and makes a plan for tomorrow. She feels a sense of accomplishment as she checks off her to-do list and closes her laptop for the day. 6:00 p.m. Exercise time. Mia heads to her local gym for a dance class. She loves how the upbeat music and energetic moves help her unwind and stay fit. It's a fun way to break up her routine and lift her spirits. 7 p.m. Dinner. Delight. Back home, Mia prepares a simple yet satisfying dinner. Grilled chicken with roasted vegetables and a side of quinoa. She enjoys cooking and often tries new recipes, making mealtime both nourishing and enjoyable. 8 p.m. Relax and unwind. After dinner, Mia settles on her cozy couch with a good book. She loses herself in the pages, letting go of the day's stress. Sometimes she watches a favorite TV show or chats with her family and friends via video call. 9 p.m. Evening wind. Down. Mia begins her bedtime routine. She writes in her journal, reflecting on the day and jotting down a few thoughts before bed. She follows her nighttime skincare regimen and sets out her clothes for the next day. 10 p.m. Good night. Mia climbs into bed, feeling content and ready for rest. She reads a few more pages of her book, then sets it aside. She turns off the lights, snuggles under her blankets, and drifts off to sleep, eager to wake up and do it all again tomorrow.